Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of episode 51 of the ITSM crowd. It was 11 hours ago. We were live with our panel that included people from Australia and India and Brazil getting their feedback about the trends that they see for service management in 2019. So we're back this evening with a motley crew. So we're going to cover North America, we're going to cover Asia, and we're going to cover Europe. And we're also going to get an update from the SIAM and DevOps industries as well about what trends people see for the rest of this year. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask our panel to introduce themselves. So working from left to right on my screen, Daniel, if you could say hello first, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm the dog that you're looking at. I'm a longtime person in IT, having headed up several places for financial services. And along the line, Steve Morgan went and dragged me into the world of IT service management the real way. And that got me into DevOps, and then Claire sneakily asked me to help with Steve and a bunch of others on this call, SIAM. And then together we decided that we needed to go and create Verisum because that was the digital way forward. So we're getting to play into a lot of different worlds, and it's fun. And I'm almost hoping to see what happens in 2019.
Thank you very much. And Ryan.
So hi everybody, Brian Ogilvie. I'm from Canada. I'm in the western part of the country, so for me it's lunchtime, so it is early enough, but it's also late enough for me to have a wine as well. And my primary focus is in the ITSM space, and of course I've kind of dabbled a little bit with the BRM space and all those things that drive value for businesses. So primarily I do consulting work here. With businesses to kind of align their people, processes, technology to get them where they need to be in kind of a right-sized space.
Thank you very much. And Simone.
Just making sure I have to take it off mute, which is not a bad thing. Look, 20 plus years service management. If you really want the proper official stuff, you can always check out the LinkedIn snapshot. Independent consultant, trainer, practitioner, also strong background in HR, OCM and marketing. Most recently, having a wonderful fun time contributing author to the Verisum Unwrapped and Applied, and helping develop, strangely enough, the ITIL 4 courseware. No, I'm not going to tell you anything prior to the launch stage. And also too, nice to share this session with fellow grommet, Daniel Burston. And I was actually just wondering, with our pre-video chit-chat about, I wonder if we actually put our cellars together, what our wine racks would look like. So I have a feeling it's going to be a fun conversation because, yes, it is evening here and wine glass is charged and ready to chat.
Thank you so much. And Steve.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Morgan. I'm a consultant leading a merry band in Cinead IT. My expertise is around IT service management, but more recently into developing the entire IT operating model. So not just the service management stuff, but all of the tooling and org and everything that sits behind that. And because IT operating models now are rarely focusing on single vendors, I was lucky enough to get involved with Claire and some of the guys on this call in the development of the SIAM material. And that's really where I spend most of my time recently, is helping organizations develop those multi-vendor operating models.
Fabulous, thank you. And Suresh.
Hi everyone, thank you. It's 11:30 in the night. I'm still active, so this is part of Asia. My name is Suresh GP. I'm the Managing Director of Top Solutions. It's always a delight to be part of Claire's ITSM crowd, some eminent panelists here. I'm really looking forward to what's the trends to look at. I've been passionate about business relationship management as a capability. Come with strong background on IT service management, and congratulations, fellow HDI top influencers. for all your work that you do, and then hoping to have a great conversation with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for staying up late for us as well. That's probably later than I'd want to be on a hangout. So my name's Claire Agutter. I'm the lead tutor at ITSM Zone, and I'm going to be the facilitator for today's hangout. I will be keeping an eye on Twitter, so if you've got any questions that you want to put to the panel, if you just ask them using hashtag ITSM crowd, then we will pick them up. And even if you're watching this on catch up, we will still kind of keep an eye on that hashtag, so you can always pop a question on there. So the reason for these sessions is it certainly feels to me in the last few years that the management world, the IT world, has gone a bit bonkers and a bit fragmented. There's new things coming out every week. We're all trying to make sense of what's going on. And really, I wanted to see if we could pin down some common trends that might help people think about what the shape of 2019 is going to look like. Now, Jamie Titchener, who's a friend of ours, did post something on LinkedIn to say he hates these prediction things because they're never right. So maybe it'll be interesting for us to revisit at the end of the year as well and see if we got anywhere. But preparing for this, I looked at the ITSM crowds that we did in 2018 to see if I could find some kind of common theme. So we had 11 ITSM crowds last year, and we covered mentoring, which makes sense, AI ops, which is artificial intelligence ops, which is increasing use of automation within operations. We covered Verism, business analysis, cloud, enterprise service management, ITIL, automation, human ops with Daniel, agile, and the fact that perhaps we're past agile and agile's not delivering the results that people want. And we also covered SIAM. So 11 different episodes, 11 different topics, all very worthy, very, very interesting. But the idea of trying to do all of that within an organisation just feels a bit overwhelming. So this morning's session, we had another panel of 5 people on, and I was making notes of the things that they mentioned, and we ended up with about 12 things that we identified as trends. So I'm going to see if we've got any crossover with this session, and then at the end of this we'll produce a little report just kind of summarising what everybody said and share that from ITSM Zone as well. So what I'm going to do with our panel is just ask them what they're seeing in their region, in their industries, and really if they can pick out a few things that might be trends for 2019. And Suresh, I think we'll kick off with you first, please, because you cover a big area with your company. You're working all over Asia. So if you could maybe tell us what stands out for you and what you think will be a trend this year.
Well, I think there's one of the things that is looking forward for people is the ITIL 4. So people are looking around what's the buzz around ITIL 4. We've been told that we're allowed to keep quiet until the formal release happens. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, but I hope there is a kind of buzz to see what is going to change. So we have to wait and watch. But then what we see going across entire Asia in the recent times, we see a lot of IT wants to step up the game to become trusted advisors with the business. So there is a real need being felt about how do you build this kind of capability within the IT organization. So recently we're working with a CIO organization which tells that we want to build a business relationship management as a capability and a competency, not just a role, because each and every one will have to kind of talk with the business partner in the language that they understand and deliver business value. So I think the conversations have moved away from cost to value, which I think is very heartening. And I'm right now in all over the place doing business relationship management for different kind of organizations like clinical research, a commodity trading company, retail sector. So I'm seeing that it is cutting across the industry. So I'm seeing there is a lot more value in people understanding how can we become strategic partners to the business. So I think that is going to be key for 2019.
Okay, thank you. And Ryan, from a North America perspective, how does that kind of align with what you're seeing?
Right. So I think one of the primary drivers, I think, at least for us from an economic climate perspective, is things that drive value. So I think in years past where people, IT organizations were trying to deliver a service, they may have not done that value realization. Businesses were doing something, they were working in very, separate kind of silos. People are finally getting to the point where they realize, there's things that we should be doing to kind of drive that value. And now they're looking for that value to kind of add. So I think when you start talking in terms of like, how do we do that? Like whether there's a slam dunk winner for a framework or something like that, I think we're starting to come to terms that there's multiple tools that we need to look at. So when we talk to things like Verisum, for example, when we're talking about management mesh, like how do those little pieces kind of work together to kind of deliver the value that we're looking for? I think that's something that the businesses are kind of striving for, and IT organizations are realizing that they need to provide. So I think that's what we're looking at this year primarily, is how to drive that value.
Yeah, and it's kind of worth mentioning, I think, for people who've maybe not come across Verisum already in detail, because we've got a few of the Verisum authors on the call. In a way, Verisum was actually a response to this kind of fragmentation within IT. So the fact that some companies are trying to make DevOps and ITIL work together, or kind of handle agile thinking with a really bureaucratic change management process. So Verisum was trying to look at that and say, well, how do we build our toolbox, and what are the bits that we need from all of these places that are going to make it work? So it was kind of taking a different approach, but I do think that it almost kind of hit framework fatigue with some people as well, and they were kind of, I've done ITIL, DevOps, Agile, now I've got to do Verisum as well, and it does get a bit overwhelming for people, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So Simone, let me bring you in at this point, because you've been globetrotting for some time. So what are the kind of trends that you've been seeing?
It's interesting. I mean, the majority of what I do, of course, is around Europe, and as part of what I always like to do an end-of-year review, and I visited over 9 different countries and cities, some of them 2 or 3 times, and they are different types of clients. Some are heavy manufacturing, others are in the service hospitality type space, and a few other things. I was looking through what are the different types of content, if you like, that I've been running versus in the training versus in the conferences, kind of like you did with our topics from last year. Definitely and I'm looking for patterns and behaviors. See, that's it for me in terms of trends. It's not looking at what's the flavor of the month or what's the top hit in terms of framework or methodology, but looking at the patterns and behaviors in the way these organizations have been looking at. A lot of it is now very much role focused, whether it's in workshops or it's training or it's actually in the consulting side. What I'm saying is, what is the actual role that's being played here? What are the responsibilities or the expectations that this person or this task actually has? So a lot more role focused, whether it's from analysts to managers. It was nice to see that not just agile principles and thinking itself, but how agile is being applied to processes, how agile is being applied to the people interactions and that kind of thing itself. So it's not just looking at agile framework, it's not looking at SAFe, not even looking at the scaled agile framework, but definitely how that agile mindset is being applied across other areas. And that even includes things like sales and marketing.
Yep.
Interestingly enough. The other thing too is very much around business relationship management, yes, but innovation leadership, business relationship management, really understanding that this is not IT. The reason it's called business relationship management is because it's not just how IT relates to the rest of the business, it's actually how does HR relate to finance, how does finance relate to sales, and I'm not talking about just salespeople's commissions. So it really is looking at it from a much bigger perspective, seeing the whole picture. A lot of talk okay, get rid of the buzzwords, digital transformation, but are they truly transforming or are they just optimizing? So there's, what I've seen is a lot of discussion around, are we just doing the quicker, cheaper, better, faster? Are we doing the same things new ways? Or are we actually doing things that we never truly imagined before? You know,
yes.
that real transformation, that real innovation side versus optimization. So there's been a lot of, I've had quite a cocktail of different things, hence why I like to use the term being the mixologist. And we're seeing more of that now, I believe, where that blending of practices has become far more important, not just as a behavior, you know, far more important as a behavior, not just knowing what things are, but hey, learn the rules and then we can break the rules. Because artificial intelligence is doing that as well. The technology has just become a catalyst. It's not the end game. And I think that's really important. I've been doing a lot of research around the World Economic Forum. They've had their recent big meets and looking at the future of jobs report. So there's a lot of skill set changes, and many of the organizations that I've been working with, especially in the last 6 months, are looking to do that. And, you know, even with Verism, I think was really good because it's not just another framework. It actually is helping bridge, I think, that gap between the other frameworks and what's going on in the business side of things. So I'm a happy chappy because my background in HR and OCM and marketing it's hitting my happy spots now.
Fabulous, thank you. So Steve, let me bring you in and talk to us a little bit about how this manifests itself in your world and with your clients.
Yeah, it's interesting what the point that Simone made around digital transformation, I think, Claire, because I've been involved in some of those programs this year, in 2018 rather, and what I've found there is that a lot of them are software led, and no one really understands the objectives they're looking to achieve, and it is more optimization than transformation at the moment. So I'd hope that as a prediction for 2019, we see a broader understanding of what transformation actually means and what digital transformation can do with business. The second thing, I'm going to just pick up on the point around ITIL, because I just had a really great analogy, really. There's a band I really like called the Arctic Monkeys. And they had a really great first album. And they had a really, really good second album. And then they've gone through this kind of weird psychedelic phase. And now everyone's got great expectations that the next album they bring out is going to be really good. So I think the expectation levels around ITIL are really high. And I really hope that they meet their expectations, as I hope that the Arctic Monkeys do as well. And then the final thing I would just say on this whole thing around SIAM, I think that what my clients are seeing is that the level of complexity is rising because the business are trying to do more stuff and call it digital transformation or whatever it might be. The number of suppliers within the SIAM ecosystem, those of you playing buzzword bingo can tick those that term off.
It's a paradigm shift, Steve.
It is a paradigm shift. So I think, you know, the level of complexity within the ecosystems increased because there's a big number of suppliers, and I'm seeing a big trend into the service provider industry really getting a hold of that, and some fantastic service providers working more closely with customers to say, we understand your challenges, and rather than presenting a technology solution, presenting an entire solution end-to-end that includes the process, the governance, the right people with the right skills to just say, hey, we've got this really great capability that can help you. So just to bring it to life and to wrap up, you know, I'm working with an insurance company at the moment who have traditionally been supporting their own internal IT department and their own internal users rather. And now they're selling services into the London insurance market. And they're doing that through a digital platform that's enabled by some great service providers who have spotted a gap in the market and have said, well, let's go make that happen. And they're bringing about some pretty radical transformational change within their IT operating model in order to make that shift from single vendor internal service provision to multi-vendor multi-customer group and a far more commercial focus. So I think that massive paradigm shifts like that will become more prevalent this year, because I think that the level of complexity is continuing to rise because of all of these things.
Perfect, thank you. And Daniel, last but by no means least, because you're very much living in this digital transformation world, so what sort of trends are you seeing with the companies that you're working with?
So today was interesting because we were with an organization and we used the phrase, do you want to be a caterpillar or do you want to be a butterfly?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was, we still have to be a caterpillar, and one day we'd like to be a butterfly. And when we started talking to them about that, yeah, they want to go to cloud. So that's another, buzzword bingo. Yeah, we want to do DevOps. Yeah, we want to do Agile. Yeah, we want to do this. Yeah, we want to do that. No, by the way, they've taken away a bunch of money out of my budget, and we still have all this stuff that we need to do. And we've got all these vendors that we need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that we really want you to help us with, other than the technology, which to them wasn't that big of a challenge, it was, we don't know how to talk to the people that are using our stuff internally, and they're a very large organization. And our people have gone from 8-hour workdays to 12-hour workdays to 14-hour workdays to working on the weekends, and we're killing them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, back to conversations we were having at the end of last year, mental health IT is becoming a big topic. And mental health IT internally, and how do we do all of this stuff and not end up with a bunch of corpses along the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I think, in 2019, you're going to see leaders start to go from being a servant leader to being yes, you can have this, but this is really what you're asking us to do. Is this what you want? And including in that the impact to the individual,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's their people or whether it's a vendor's team. And that's me done.
And I think we touched on this broader theme in the human ops ITSM crowd, because we were talking about tech ethics and ethics in general, and kind of the cost of some of the things that we do. So I think you're absolutely right to highlight that. We don't have a huge amount of time left, but there was one thing that came up this morning which I'd just like to pick up and get your thoughts on. So this morning we had Basab joined us from India and Nicholas joined us from Brazil. And one of the trends that they were talking about, which is kind of bigger picture in a way, but is still very much driving what they do, is an increasingly mobile and connected population. So Nicholas was telling us that in Brazil there's more smartphones than people, for example, and that's driving the products and services and the service management, but it's also driving a very large amount of cybercrime, and an actual trend for them is an increased need for cybersecurity. So I wanted to put that to you five, and just see if that's something that resonated with you as well.
It's interesting that you brought it across. We are just doing a workshop on DevOps, and the security expert called us and he said, we like the Phoenix project simulation, but we have a problem. It's very focused on Dev and Ops. So security comes at the last end and we are bleeding. And they think as we are a stage gate review. So I want you to stress the importance of security as part of the whole value chain. And you're absolutely right, with increasing amount of connectedness, mobile devices, the cybersecurity threats are phenomenally high. And with a lot of GDPR, data privacy laws coming in, it's going to be increasingly important to have controls in place, which I think people are still struggling, because if you are having the proliferation of devices that we have, it's going to be very tough. So it's absolutely going to be a nightmare if we just don't get things into control. I mean, it's going to be really overwhelming.
I think, Claire, it's a really good question that was asked. I did watch the session this morning, and I'm really looking forward to what Daniel has to say about this, because he actually presented around this afternoon on a summit. But for me, I was actually on the customer end of one of those mobile cyber issues. And it kind of freaks you out, because as little as they might be in the bank account, it's still one of those things that scares your heart drops into your stomach, your throat starts to close over, you've realized something has gone seriously wrong. And this is part of the mental health side too, because, we're operating in that space where we have a duty to serve and protect. And that's really quite critical, and how we get those patterns and behaviors across all our organization, not just IT. Everybody takes security as their own responsibility for their own space, but also how they impact the space coming in and out of what they do in their environment. And that is amazing how that emotional stress and that emotional feeling actually translates throughout what we actually do, whether it's at a project level or a development level or otherwise. So I'm a huge fan of the whole DevSecOps and Resilia and, those other things. And GDPR is still not fully understood.
No.
Some organizations worldwide are still coming to grips, even just coming to grips on the legal level, but coming to grips with it on what does it mean on a practical day-to-day level for that particular staff member, regardless of what authority level or role that person has. So I think it's a huge question, and definitely something that, well, you just have to look at the Back to ITSM feed on Facebook. It's still happening. So over to the rest of the crew.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that people bring up, is that this is still very much a people thing. And I think sometimes maybe that gets the lose sight of that a little bit, in the sense that, there's people that are impacted, but people are also making decisions to be proactive in the way that we treat cybersecurity. And I think there's still quite a few organizations that are still thinking like, that's that company, that's not my company. I'm okay still, we're still kind of protected, but they may not be as protected as they think. And even when they're looking at their budgets, the way that they plan for cybersecurity, it's still very reactive, right? So they're less in that proactive state still. And I think there's going to be a large shift as people kind of get realization that they need to protect their assets and protect their people when they're looking at how they deal with cybersecurity.
You make a good point though, Ryan, right? Because if you talk about digital transformation is digitizing some of our day-to-day processes. And we add on to that the complex ecosystem of suppliers. Surely then the risk of cyber security issues just becomes greater. And it's kind of like, from my perspective, is that, well, isn't that what you expected? It's, if you make things more complicated and digitize more processes, then surely the increased risk of cybersecurity becomes greater. And I think that very few IT leaders have really grasped that increase in risk, and therefore they're still
being sure.
Sorry, Simone, go ahead.
I said no such thing as being sure in this
yes.
one. It's a VUCA environment.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, we are coming towards the end of our time. Same issue we had earlier on today, which is we wanted to bring a lot of people into these sessions, but unfortunately it does mean we don't have as much time to chat as we would like. But I suspect we will revisit some of the topics that we've highlighted as important. So next steps from here are, I've been scribbling away. I was scribbling away earlier today, and I've been writing some extra bits down tonight because there's been some things mentioned that weren't mentioned in the previous part of this hangout, and we are going to put all of those together, try and put some structure, some grouping around them, try and pull out some common themes, I think, even off the top of my head, this concept of enterprise service management, or the organisation as the service provider rather than the IT department, seems to be coming through quite strongly, and IT practices being pushed outside of the IT department. But there are some other common themes that have come through as well. So all that remains for me to do for now is to say, don't forget to watch our next episode, which is on February the 18th. We have got